Places north of Lumsden getting
We're right.
90 kilometre an hour.
We're underway, Nicole.
All good?
Yes.
Welcome to the Democracy Workshop this afternoon. With no apologies from this morning, which is John, Peter, Phil, Neville and Eric. Would somebody like to move that their apologies be accepted? Moved by Paul, seconded by Alistair. All in favour say aye.
Aye.
Right. Item 3 is Democracy Matters Elected Member Induction Feedback Process. In your hands.
Lovely. So following on from the midterm review that you had with Stephen, Dell and Fern, at that time you had some feedback about induction and Amy promised that we'd actually come back and gather those thoughts from you. And so that's what we're doing here today. Unfortunately, Amy can't be here. So I'm going to lead you through the feedback process, and Deborah here, who is our new governance administrator, is actually here helping me, and she's going to be our scribe today to take down your answers. We've got a little process in the way that we're going to actually lead you through our feedback today. So each question, we're going to give you all 2 minutes to actually quietly think about your answers, and then you'll all get 1 minute each to feed back to us. And we'll just keep going around the table until we've got all your ideas on each question. Following the 3 questions, we'll then loop back to the original question and just actually ask some more detailed questions around what you fed back on that. And then effectively that will be it. What we'll do is next steps is that we'll document everything that you've fed back to us. We'll give it back to you to actually have another wee look at. And then we'll actually see what we can do with improving the induction process for 2025 for our new elected members, whether that may be some of you coming back or new additional people. So we'll just get underway. So you understand the process. I'm going to ask you the first question. You're going to get 2 minutes to think about it. And then I'm going to ask you each individually to actually give me feedback. You get 1 minute for that feedback with no interruptions from anybody else. Great. Awesome. So our first question, which I have written up on the board, but you won't be able to see because I can't see it either, is thinking about your induction in 2022, what went well? Okay, 2 minutes from now, quietly think about your response.
What happens if we give you a blank?
Yes.
Okay, that's right.
Just got another 30 seconds.
I'm just, because I'm right in the middle of the meeting, can I give you a call back later?
Okay. Has everybody written down some answers? Right, what we'll do is we'll just pop around the room.
Hang on.
We'll start with Councillor Evans. You have 1 minute.
Oh, God. Okay, right. Computer changeover went quite well, and we're doing it again now. But with regards to thinking about the induction process, I don't actually think it went terribly well. So, right to the point where we came in, we were put into council. We went for photos, and even now, still on the website, the carryover councillors' old photos are up on the website, and they're in the very relaxed position of leaning on tractors and fences and stuff. And all of us new councillors are there in our suits and ties, looking a bit like a tree. So I don't know whether much. Well, other computer changeover was quite good, quite helpful. Jane was very good at getting us all sorted, but yeah, we seem to be a wee bit stagnated, because when I look at the photos of our councillor photos, these lovely ones here.
They were all quite a bit later for the term before.
Well, they had the term before.
Well,
And then we have
well, might be this term, yeah.
these ones here. It's like not enough effort put in.
Thank you. That's your 1 minute.
Thank you.
Lovely. Councillor Gibson.
Oh, no, so.
2022 was 3 years back, and the problem that I had, and I understand no Maori language, I'm sorry about that, well, that's me.
So can I just say we're focusing on what went well?
Well,
Come
it went
down to
well
the
from the
stuff
point
later.
of view that there was a hell of a lot of it.
Yep.
And I lost the thread completely. Now, others probably understood it, but in my simple nature, I'd never faced that before in all the jobs that I'd had. So it probably went well for everyone else, but didn't for me.
Got anything else you want to add?
Sure.
Councillor Rodway.
Well, when we got together, and I think it was at Transport World, that might have been a previous one. However, we got together as a group, and we got to think about the task ahead, and we had information provided by the staff, which I felt was very useful, because they, understand the legislation and our statutory responsibilities and what we were required to do. So that kind of thing is very good. I think, and for a new one, that's really important that we should do that. Probably not just on one occasion, but on several occasions. I think we probably did meet on more than one occasion. So that kind of format is great.
Councillor Cotton.
Thank you. I thought it was perfectly adequate. Thank you. Aside from a couple of issues, which I will talk about when we come to the other side. Thank you.
Have you got anything you'd like to highlight out of the perfectly adequate?
No, well done. Oh, well, just in light of, I mean, I've been through more than one. It's very good.
Yes, I think the process was quite good, but there were a number of factors that probably bring up on what didn't go so well. So I think we covered the bases you normally would, and done more than once. But yeah, for a new council, it's a huge information dump, and it's probably more out of not the what went well as what can we do better.
Councillor Ludlow, you were meant to have 2 minutes to think about what went well in the induction in 2022.
Right, so just that one.
Yep.
Sorry, but I've got more things that I would do differently than I would keep the same. So that's all I can say. Actually.
Okay, no, that's fine. That's good as gold. Great. Has anybody got anything else to add? We can go around the room again if we'd like.
Coming in as a new councillor, I thought we would get described what all happens here. In other words, there's several departments, I know that now. But as to what they do, so as we understand that, so we can convey that information back to our constituents and talk about it quite freely. And then I guess on top of that was getting those departments, whatever, are obviously working together on different projects. What projects are they doing? How is my ratepayers' money being spent? And that helps get it out there and get it understood in the community as to what we do. There's a lot of things that are described here that are quite technical, but by the time they get out into the public, it's all lost, just like the 48 staff vacancies.
Okay.
this
Okay.
morning.
So that's really not stuff that we did well, but that's okay. We can actually still document that because what I'll do now is actually take you to the next question. Again, you're going to have 2 minutes just to sit and think about your answers, and then we'll go around the room and we'll actually get your response. So here's your opportunity. 2 minutes, and remember 1 minute to speak to it, and I can go around the room more than once. And the question is, what was not useful? 2 minutes to think quietly to yourselves.
You mean what was like superfluous? Not what else could have been done?
Yeah, so it's what wasn't useful that we gave you.
Wasn't necessary or wasn't.
Yeah.
Are we answering personally or as what was not
Both.
useful to the council?
You can do both. Your 2 minutes starts now.
It's terrible.
So while you're thinking, I'll just let you know some of the stuff that you did do. You did a REM workshop. There was a briefing, council's financial situation, LTP, annual plan. There was stuff on strategy and policy and regulation committee. Is community environmental awards. We gave you an overview of what they are. Gave you an overview on LGNZ zone meetings. We talked about the mural forum. Talked about standing orders and meeting procedural training. So that might help with thinking.
I think the REM was
30 seconds. Okay. So we'll pop around the room and we'll go in the other direction. So if we start, Chairman Hurrell, that'd be great. So what wasn't useful?
I think it was all very useful, and it's probably getting out of the thing. It's the ability for new councillors to absorb and in hindsight, I think we should have done more follow-ups because all that's hugely useful information. I remember my first inaugural meeting, they posted out a rather large package which didn't reach me until the week after the thing. So there was an assumption I knew a whole lot of stuff which I didn't, and I was totally blindsided because I had no idea what we're actually doing. To adopting it sworn in, I knew that was going to happen, but
So the timing of the delivery of the information for you.
But whether that's more pre-information, I mean, people, you get elected, and often people are coming with an issue that they've got a burning desire to do something about. And this is a very complex organisation which does a whole lot of functions. And, it's what you said, we've actually run through a lot of that stuff. But, yeah, so you do get probably information overload as a new councillor.
Thank you.
I can't even remember the introduction, actually, to be honest. I can't remember where it was.
There's a whole lot of different things.
Was it here?
Most of it
I'm
was.
just thinking, we weren't outside.
It was not quite the same
I'm
as the
getting
previous
all, I'm getting
time.
all mixed up with all the ones that, the original one you spent about, just about Campton, Scott Park. So, no, I'm just going back, that's 9 years.
So if you can remember back, was there anything that was not useful for you?
I don't think there's anything that's not useful in any of the discussion because it's all a huge learning curve. And I was just reading what was wow and what needs to be done or whatever. It's because nobody understands councils unless you've been here. I mean, it's the perception what you're going to do and change the world. So any information, that's what I'm saying, is important. And if we have got the same committees, understand very clearly what those committees does in the context of running the councils.
I just want to know what was superfluous.
Well, explain the word.
Not useful.
That's one of them.
No.
Not useful when you come to the
Yeah.
council, we ever use big words for some of us that aren't. That is not, that was the most challenging part when these two started.
The acronyms.
But I'm just saying that
There we go.
what's useful is that understanding the code of conducts and those things. Stating very clearly and spending some time on meeting procedures, code of conduct, get that really clear in the beginning and understanding the committees. See, we're doing inductions after we elected it. So we're picking committee meetings before that, which is actually silly to be honest. Because you actually got to know what those committees are doing, then you go, how do we fit in? How do we get the best use out of people? So, I'm just putting, hey, Robert.
So we
I
could
want
say
some mumbling
that
beside me.
actually not understanding the committee structures and what the committees do prior to actually going on to the committees.
Yeah, how do you
Wasn't
do
useful?
that? Honestly.
No, but I'm just saying it's information and maybe that needs to be sent out before.
Candidates should do that before they stand.
But you come down here and, but again, a lot of candidates don't actually know anything about the council.
Correct.
Councillor
I'm
Coulter.
just,
It's
sorry.
your questions are very nebulous, they're actually quite hard to answer. However,
Give me words that I understand, Robert.
sorry. Vague.
This sounds like Star Trek or
Yeah,
something
exactly,
like
like a vague splattering. So the things that were superfluous from my point of view were just the things I already knew, but I can't pin those down again. And I didn't mind having to go back over that again because in some ways they were good. But you were just asking what was superfluous. I won't go into, as Jeremy did, suggestions about particular things. It's good that we do, but that'll be the next round, I presume. Thank you, that's all I've got to say.
Well, I just support really what Nicole and Jeremy have said, really. Perhaps I'll be a little more blunt. But some of us, and even us have been there for a while, probably all of us, who are not totally familiar with the role, probably needed more time. We needed to spend more time understanding what the role was. This is particularly difficult for new councillors who are not experienced in board governor roles at a high level. They have a much easier pathway because of this experience. I think there wasn't enough information and guidance on how to liaise with the staff. That stuff we got
Can
for
we
the
move to the third question?
PE
Right, we can
PE meeting earlier. The board governance role was really spelled out really well. We need to have that really drummed into us really well. And I know that's difficult for some people, and this applies to councils all over New Zealand who come to the council with you know, with not a, but something, you know, that they want to achieve. But being a councillor is not like that. And that is very difficult for many of us to appreciate, and that needs to be delved into. We need to, you know, really need to explore that, so that each of us and our particular personalities and what we bring to the role need to be moulded to some extent, so that we can give the best for the whole community. Because if we stay fixated on a particular issue, then that's to the detriment of the whole organisation.
Totally support what Morris has said. I wished I'd been able to do what these guys did and add a little bit more in like that. Just to say that was one, I made 2 points. One of them was what Morris is saying about, for example, a full knowledge and understanding of the relationship between governance and staff. We should have done more of that. The second thing is about code of conduct issues. How should you behave as a councillor? We clearly should have done more than that. So if we're jumping into what we think, which I think is a good idea, what we think the important issues are, then I'm very much, I think, on board with what Morris is saying here. As more experienced councillors, which we are, that was what I think, what I saw and am seeing.
So a question that I'm going to actually extend, and I'm breaking my own rules, is I believe that you had a buddy system.
No.
It was documented that there was a buddy system.
That may relate to what I've got for that section.
So if there was a buddy system, new elected members with existing or returning elected members on the council, would you support a buddy system?
Is that a good idea?
Well, we can keep going. Keep going, I think. Sure. Alistair?
Too long and hot, 4 days,
Okay,
no understanding of direction,
great.
speak in English, not and abbreviations. That was my Maori thing before. And all these abbreviations came up and you think, what the hell is that? And there was a lot of legislation, which I understand now. That's what the regional council's about. But you had no idea, so it was fuzzy floating. You know, what's it all about? If we had gone to every department, I suppose, and we would have understood what legislation came out of those sort of things. The finance, well, coming from private enterprise, you think finance is finance, and a dollar goes there, and it's a prisoner. It doesn't seem to be a prisoner around here, and that's quite hard to understand. And also coming from working from reasonably rigorous budgets to what appears to be, and it's getting better, I can see that, and over the 3 years of money floating from place to place. Also, one of the things that I thought could have helped, and I did go to Jeremy with it at one stage, was why don't you grab us useless people coming in and put us in as vice chairs, and then we get educated by you guys who know and understand the system. Well, that never happened. We had no vice chairs with new people. So yeah, I think that could help things go through.
Yes, what was not useful and fuzzy floating. I like fuzzy floating. There was a wee bit of fuzzy floating, wasn't there?
Yeah.
It felt that way. But when you come in and you win the election, you have to learn about your councillors. The only way you can learn about your other councillors is through the website, if any of the ones that have come through. But I did get a few phone calls from other councillors, and I thought it was really nice. But then later on felt it was a bit lobbying, because we went straight into voting people into committee chairs and stuff. So there was a wee bit of what was not useful was, getting into the new ones quickly so that we could side felt that way in some respects. If you know what I mean.
Little bit.
And I like what
Out of scope.
Yeah, it's a little bit outside the induction piece that we brought to you versus how elected members work with each other.
What was not useful was lobbying.
The lobbying, yeah.
Lobbying. So, you know, you wanted to know during, and this is the induction starts from when your numbers come up. That's the induction start. That's the organisation's chance to grab us by the horns and say, yep, that's cool. And before we got into the voting stuff, it wasn't useful to go straight into chair, vice chair. There was tension. We didn't even sit down and talk to each other and sat down for a meeting and had a beer. We didn't even say g'day. I looked at Ludlow's picture on the website, Lyndall, and went, oh yeah, that's Lyndall. I looked at Jeremy's and went, that's Jeremy. You know, that's what you're picking it from, and that's what I said about the photos on the website. Still all the old ones for the old councillors, the old propped up, you know, posing. I think you're in Queen's Park, aren't you? No? And then we're in suits and all. So, yeah, it was just all of it. It got really politicised. And I didn't find that useful at all. Yeah. I like the fuzzy floating. I did. Because there was a bit of that. For the first 3 weeks, it was like you were just...
Yeah, what the hell's going on?
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
I barely have words actually, but I'll hold it on to after them.
Gotta be open and frank.
Yeah, but this is not the time, right? The time is the next part of the conversation. What was superfluous?
Long pauses between ideas.
Yeah, long pauses because trying to choose my words carefully. The timing is the challenge, actually, the superfluous bit, because when you told us about the schedule that we'd had and the likes of the awards information, and there was something else as well. And I'm thinking, well, actually, really important that we know that stuff, but maybe it's actually the prioritisation of the information that we get is the hard part, because we all want all the information, because you come in with gaps and you return with gaps. But the timing of some of that, maybe maybe the awards stuff could have, and you know how much I love it. So, but maybe the timing of that was not ideal, because there were other things that, like maybe committee structures, or maybe there was an RMA briefing so that we actually understand, so yeah, so I guess the superfluous part, I guess, is the timing of some of those.
Yeah, totally understand. Has anybody else got anything else they'd like to add to that part of what wasn't actually useful? Right. So we'll move on. Again, you've got 2 minutes to think about this one, and I think you're going to all have quite a bit of feedback on this. So what was missing that we should have actually incorporated into the induction, and what we could actually bring into the induction for 2025? So 2 minutes to think about that.
I think we've already done it.
Some of us haven't.
Just keep thinking there might be something else.
My brain doesn't work.
Okay, so we'll pop round the room. No, would you like to begin this time?
Oh, maybe not. You might have to come back to me as well.
Okay, we can go round the room more than once. 1 minute to tell me some of
Oh,
the
1
feedback
minute.
on that. Yes.
Ooh, okay. So we probably need to have a council get together before the first council meeting. And in one of our terms, I think it was our first term, Jeremy, we actually had those 2 days at the spot before first council, and we had some really good governance training, maybe I think, and we certainly had some good work with Vern and what's his face? Yep. We need an RMA understanding, especially for those who haven't done their homework and have come in unelected and don't know that. The Local Government Act, dictates a whole lot of what we can and cannot do, so we need a much clearer understanding of that. The role of governance and the scope of our work. I'd maybe suggest a pre-election, some pre-election work, and I have every intention of putting that, whatever it's called, that one was just published, the pre-election report. I'm going to put that on my, candidate website, because I think that's really helpful. But also we could go through that kind of thing when we get together. We also needed some quality time together with the exec alone, just the exec and us, to kind of, for a briefing of each of their roles and scope of their responsibilities. How we get around the election of a chair at really short notice, as far as knowing each other, I don't know, because we've got to do that.
I'm going to give you 10 more seconds.
Okay, and the other part of that is that I know there's a weird requirement for us to appoint our committees at the first council meeting, but that speaks to some of the other issues raised earlier about not really knowing what committee you want to be on because you don't know the scope of it, but we've got to do that at our first council meeting. So I guess that means that we need to get together before the first council meeting. Reinforces that point, I guess. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, so exactly what Lyndall said right at the end there with regards to a get together. I think you said Ascot Park. I can't remember. No.
No, that was
No, you
prior-
said Ascot,
prior
but
to-
you
yeah.
said what was it? The transport world. That was partway through our term that we ever went to transport. When we receive a nomination document for our opportunity, would it be good to get a rundown, a calendar of what's expected for the person that's putting their name down? Because we see groundswell saying, come and have a meeting with us and we'll give you a lead down on what's required of a councillor. But we don't do that for people that put the nomination form in. We don't have a little.
I'll just say we have had a candidate information evening.
Yeah.
And there's also our candidate information book.
Yeah, okay, right. Need more introductions from all other councillors. So whether that be that day or two before we start voting on things, and also a rundown on who was already the chair previous term, because I like what Alistair said about vice chairs for new is it's the only way to go as far as I'm concerned. What we shouldn't do, people are going to disagree with me, a goodbye breakfast or goodbye morning tea for the old councillors who came in, and we had a cry session here. It must have been bloody uncomfortable for John, I thought. I was quite lucky that Lloyd was tearful and everything.
We've never done that before. That's weird.
And okay, so you've just said that. Whereas with Alan and myself was fine because I already went and saw Alan at his place. We had a yak and talk and we got on. Well, hopefully it seemed like we got on. But we had a morning.
10 seconds.
We had a morning tea. Don't do that again, please. For
Sorry.
the young councillors, that was just odd, really odd.
Yeah.
And more learning about meeting procedures and vice chairs for the new councillors. I really,
Great, thank you.
That's that one.
We need to be introduced and understand the management structure. In other words, who's who in the zoo, and what do they do? And that gives you a bit of a rundown on if you're bringing things in, what it all means. Once again, to take out, for most of us, I think that are coming off the turnips, take out the Maori, take out the abbreviations.
I object to that.
Look,
Take out.
hey,
the
this
Māori.
is mine, not yours.
Oh, I'm telling you, I
Order.
object strongly to
You can
take out the
object.
Māori.
You can object, but if we
Okay.
don't, what did I say, Robert?
Take
I
out the
said
Māori.
those who are coming in off the turnips, my friend. Well, you're not my friend now at all. Okay, so we describe, we need to understand what's going on within the business because we're actually meant to be the directors of that business. And in that, we're understanding what the core business is that we're operating for. And also that would come out then, the legislation, the rules, regulations, all those sort of things would become more appropriate or understood, I think. And it's not hard to go and look up them if you know where it is. You can look it up on the website. The finance, we need to be running at that and understanding where it all goes because it is money coming from our community. And my thing of vice chairs, I think, is quite a good idea because you start to learn off the old fellas. When I got there, Jeremy said, "Oh, you know, you can go on Lyndall's one." I said, "Shit, no, I don't want to go there." No, he said.
But
he
now
said,
you know
"Oh."
differently, don't you, Alistair?
That was a gamble.
And no, you
have
can
10
you
seconds,
can go on
Councillor
Lyndall's
Gibson.
one, but you're not in her committee. So that didn't work, did it? And that was the only one that didn't have a vice chair. I understand at the time.
Thank you.
Right. I think for what we needed to do have specific sessions and a follow-up, and not just, you know, once or twice, but actually throughout the whole term, really, of these sorts of things, a code of conduct, constant reminder of what's acceptable and what's not acceptable. Relationships with staff, again, keep reminding us what we can and can't do. What responsibilities that we have legally under the RMA, for example. What are our policies and plans? What do they say? What are their objectives? What are their policies? How many people here know what the policies and objectives of our Southland Water and Land Plan are? You know, we should have, not word for word, but we should know generally what these say because it guides our whole business. Our relationship with local iwi, that's something that really needs to be, and whether some people like it or not, it is part of our life and part of our responsibility. That's something that needs to be constantly brought in front of us. And also keep telling us that we represent all of the people, and not just the ones that we talk to or identify with. And then workshops are an important part of our business as well. What is their role? You know, what is their function? So we know how to use those to the best advantage. Thank you.
Thank you.
Again, I absolutely support what Morris has said, very statesman-like view, I think. I think that one really critical thing that's missing from the induction process, but mainly because it's missing from the council itself, is a process whereby we governors govern each other. It's something we desperately need and we don't have, and I don't think it comes down to just the chairperson managing the behaviours and so on of the council laws. We should be doing that as a group, and I don't feel it doesn't exist other than unofficial, and it's not good enough because it hasn't been effective. The second thing I would like to say, because I made this mistake when I first came onto the council, I believed that Environment Southland was something of an environmental protection agency. It's not. It's a resource management organisation. That's very different. And I think that the branding is somewhat misleading. And it took quite a long time before anybody said to me, actually, it's a bit like you're saying, Morris, the understanding of the RMA and the implications and what we work to. It took a wee while for that to come through. So that might be something that's very important to have clearly expressed right at the beginning.
Wonderful.
Actually, I was just thinking, Al, I know about Te Reo, but I'm probably a wee bit, no, I don't mean a short point of view. I would actually challenge that from an iwi perspective, the iwi participation, understanding where iwi, we have a partnership. And I believe if we can get this partnership going, if it's really good and that it's really healthy, and I think there'll be, personally, the world's our oyster if everybody's happy and we're going sorting out some of these issues, especially with iwi. But iwi need to step up to that game too, as far as, sorry. But I wonder whether, as a council, we need to sort of challenge that. Hey, look, you've got your local rungas, need to go and engage. Maybe Alistair, I should have gone and had a yarn with Terry Nicholas for a while.
I did.
Yeah, I knew him anyway, but it's actually to challenge the gun, because they are a big part of our discussions. So whether we're actually really pushing it as a governors, we might challenge each other to do it. There was something I was going to say. That was I think coming back to, and this is what Morris is saying, there seems to be, there is a bit of point that we've got to get our structure right around the governorship. It's like, forget about all the committees and everything, actually just why you're here, who you represent, how you respect each other, how you work together, where's management, where you. It's actually not about all the policies, it's actually saying, this is how things need to run. And if this runs well, we can sort all the actual day-to-day stuff. And there seems to be a bit of that, and maybe that's a good, and there might need to be, whether that's the Verns of the world and things to come down and really nut it out, because that is, there will be people, and I don't have no idea who's going to be sitting around this table, or around half the councils, that'll come in and will have never been in a meeting. There will be. And you go, well, this is actually how we respect and how we make, it's about respect, and we have time, but you've got to give people time to assess all that. And understand, and you need some really good, and I always go back to Vern and Steve McDowell, a rugby player. That's what
What's his name?
I was going to say. That, like someone like that, they can really engage and get and just be very clear. So not overburdening, but it's actually got to be done, because then they've got the knowledge of how to participate accurately. Because you're going around here and someone will sit here when to ask a question, is any question, my question's too stupid. I don't use big enough words, for me and things like that to be intelligent. It's so those are the things when you first turn up, and I think it'd be really good to get that really inclusive. Now there's a whole heap of stuff, but I'm just trying to get the nuts and bolts at the beginning, really emphasise. And I'm very, iwi. They've got to get their heads around iwi.
That was almost statesmanlike as well, Jeremy.
Thank you. By the way, I'm standing for election. Do I start my campaign now?
Don't have to live in the
No.
constituent.
That's just one
Your
point.
standards.
Get that right, I think everything will actually flow on quite well.
Chairman Hurrell.
Yeah, right. I think I think the acting CEO should coordinate at least one meeting before your inauguration. So probably high level, take people through the building, cup of tea, people to get a chance to actually meet each other, have a conversation. We're still governed by the Local Government Act, but I think there would be. You've got to do your oaths. You've got to actually elect a chair and a deputy. You probably could get round doing the committees. The only hiccup was you probably won't get paid for another couple of weeks, because those positions actually determine who's getting paid what. But I think it's probably well worth actually looking at. But again, I think the information we got each time induction is quite good, but there needs to be a 3-month follow-up. It's a whole lot of stuff. But key really is code of conduct, but it's really trust and respect. It's how we treat each other, how we treat staff, understanding the difference between governance and management. No such thing as a silly question. When I first came in, you realised you had to trust the people sitting around the room, but ask a lot of questions. And you realise before you're actually going to be able to advance your own ideas, you've got to get trust and respect around the table. I think that's also pretty important. And people might come in for a purpose, but we all take an oath. We take an oath to do the best for Southland, not just one group. And from time to time, I still reflect on it. Sometimes if there's an issue, you actually got to go back to your oath. And so that's probably plenty. But I think some of those informal meetings before and afterwards, because it's a lot to take in. Walk around the building, emergency management. A lot of people don't even know that's sitting there for quite some time.
This is why it won't be.
They'll probably do, I think.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we were going to circle back round, but I
Hang on.
usually...
Are you going to let us come receive?
Yes, if you want to come back round again.
Yeah, I have got a couple of things to
Yes.
do quickly.
Right.
I'd forgotten, and thank you for reminding me, Councillor Gibson, that I had always wanted to have some meetings on marae. So early in the piece, that would be nice, and an education opportunity as well, and a familiarity, breaking down the various opportunity. The finance conversation needs to be annual plan, LTP, interplay, and how big a thing that actually is. We haven't spent as much time this time on policy. In my first term, we regularly revisited policies through either workshops or whatever the name of that committee was at the time, and we haven't done, even as strategy and policy chair, I've been trying to get some of those policies to come to committee, and that's something that can be regular, which feeds into my next point, which is all of these things that we're talking about, that cyclical nature of revisiting some of that, not all the time and not all of it, but the regularity of some of that update would be helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, and getting to my thoughts about a meeting prior and a couple of days where we get to know each other, and that's also including Manawhina and Te Marama, and the understanding of Te Marama and how it came about and the history. And you don't know, if you don't know, you don't know. And in my first term, I still didn't know until not long ago. So you just, you don't go, you hear people say, but this is this. And you go, well, how you need to learn that. So maybe part of that first couple of days would be going to the marae as well, and sitting down and working out the relationships there. But yeah, and as I said, the documents will the list of the importance that we need to work through, like long-term plan, annual plan, coastal plan, all these sorts of plans, fees and charges. Maybe a list of how much the percentage increases have been for the last 5 years, and maybe, not banging your head against brick walls. But more understanding is the big thing, because we do have to vote for committee chairs, and we do have to vote for a chairman. If I remember rightly, the vote for a chairman this time was quite an adversarial one, where Robert was trying to enlist a vice chair situation, and then it was something came up that couldn't do it constitutionally or something. So I was sitting back going, whoa, what's happening here? You know what I mean? Hey? And can you remember that, Robert? No, it was very much so like, wow, So I was quite tried to remove myself from that situation, because it was like, these people seem to know what they're talking about, but sometimes maybe not, I don't know. Because it was deemed unconstitutional, I think, to have vice chairs. So
It's understanding those processes.
Yes,
When we
it's
go
not-
down that track.
it's not like a coalition where you have 3 partners and one becomes So no, that was, in review. Honestly, it is a lot to take in for a newbie. I think Jeremy, are we live streamed? I don't know.
Yes.
Jeremy, you were saying, in previous terms, there was councillors that didn't turn up or may have been scared off by the initial, when they came into term. Prior to my coming on council, there was a councillor that was scared off by it, effectively.
No, I don't think so.
Oh, wait, you mean once they're elected?
Yeah.
No,
The process.
I'm just saying, you're trying
Yeah.
to learn when to put hand
So
on
it is
whether you're
quite
one of
a
those-
daunting
Not scared
thing.
off, just understanding.
And a lot of times you've got to remember too, previous people that have been in the roles, we invested a lot of their time and effort into it. And then all of a sudden they're not there.
Yeah. Okay.
And they might want to carry on their process, but that's where it'll be good. Like I went and sat down with Alan, and I remember Alan saying, "You sure you want this?" But it would be good for the councillor to talk to the previous outgoing councillor, if you know what I mean, for more understanding.
Right.
I think we've all got to realise that there's no hierarchy. We all represent 8,000 people except some. And that is the whole thing. And what really happened during the process was nobody identified the skills that anybody had that represented those 8,000 people. Because outside that, there is no hierarchy, or there should not be any hierarchy.
Does your 8,000, is that 100 and something thousand divided by 12? No?
Yes.
Right.
And plus
So
four.
we all represent 100.
We all
something
represent
thousand,
8,000 people,
100 and something thousand.
There. there or thereabouts.
100 and something
Perfect
thousand.
constituency.
Okay, can I just clarify,
12, so 144. Oh, 12
councillor,
8's 96, so there or thereabouts.
can I just clarify the point that you're trying to make with regarding to identifying the skills of people? Is that the people around the table?
Correct,
So it's actually sharing each other's skills and what skills you have and what you
and
bring
get
to
them
the
in the
table.
right place.
You got anything further to add?
No, because I'll start bullshitting. I mean,
Thank you.
Nothing more, Paula.
Thank you.
Just a couple of things, Paula, thank you. One is I really like Lyndall's suggestion of spending time on a marae, and I'd like to nominate Alistair to be our kai kōrero.
oh shit, I mean, sorry.
But my serious suggestion is around the oath that Nicole referred to. We've given it on a piece of paper, but we're not giving it, as I remember, we've got no particular understanding and certainly no shared understanding about what we're saying. And I've heard time and time and time again, who is our constituency? Who do we represent? It's an ongoing, unresolved debate, and I think it needs to be clear to all of us what we're actually saying and signing up to with the oath. So, thank you.
Do we just quickly, sorry, might be off topic, but when you're doing these evenings, understanding, how do you tell it the work involved? Really, this takes a lot of work. I mean, some work harder than others, I'll say that. Just that, because it's everybody's,
Human nature.
yeah, I mean, that's just life,
It's just
but
people.
it is, I know, that's the only question I ever rang out councillor Nicole. How many days? Haven't met Nicole. Oh, no, 2 days should be right. I've held it against him for the rest of the last 9 years, but he lied to me. No, but
They told me one, I can.
but from a point that, I mean, you don't want to scare people off, but expectation communities voted you here. You've got to do the work. And that's that's one of the biggest things that people don't understand.
So-
I don't know, I'm just saying, what
Yep.
do you do in your meetings, pre-meetings, not trying to scare people off. It's not me trying to scare people off. But you're going to have to front up, this is it 2 days a week? or is
What
it
I
one
can
day?
say is we actually held our candidates evening on the 12th of June, so it's been passed, and Amy presented and gave a very good overview of what's expected. I'm happy to share that presentation with you all.
Yeah,
If
it'd be
you would
interesting.
like to see what we did actually present at
We
that
can
evening.
share that on our
Can you just bring it through to us?
pages
I can
or
look into that
whatever.
for you and let you know.
Yes, you know,
But
useful
we're happy to
information.
give the presentation to you to actually view. It's effectively a
Delphi
public
name,
document.
but I'm hoping it's realistic.
But it
Just to
was
be
very
really-
realistic and very quite detailed and yeah, what I'll say is she gave a very good overview of the expectations of time and commitment to what you actually have to bring to the table.
Did you get many candidates?
We had an attendance of 8 people, which I was
Quite good.
quite pleased with, considering
That's
it's really the
in-
first time we've had really one here.
I think, making, another thing some people haven't realised is we have daytime meetings, so I hope that's come across. But also there is a lot of reading, and so it's knowing all that stuff. Paul mentioned about, people lobbying before that meeting. Having some pre-meetings is really good, but the reality is people aren't just going to come along on the day. There will be people that will canvass for support. That's just a reality of political life. But having some pre-meetings and getting to know each other, getting a bit of an idea, I think is really important. But it is just that sheer workload of there needs to be as I said before, refreshers on everything, code of conduct, but just what's in the order and land plan and whatever. And the other thing is even the committees, if you delayed them, I've thought for a while that we probably new council probably needs to look at the structure. Is it fit for purpose? Does it need to be changed? We do have some duplication at the moment with some stuff, so that would be another good thing. That if you didn't do it on the day, actually staff could come and present and say, look, this is the way it's been. You may be interested in changing that structure to get the best out of people.
Sorry, also.
Last time round the table.
No, with committees, we go back to the committees. I realised partway through that there was a committee I really wanted to be on, but at the time I didn't. And it seems harder to get on than it is to get off. Getting off a committee is quite an easy scenario.
Well, you just don't come. just don't come.
Don't come. But getting on is a bit of a palaver in the old language, if I remember rightly. And about the lobbying, it's just matter of fact. And even today, Nicole, you said, would you even do a chair next term, Paul, or whatever? And I sit here and think, well, you don't know until you see who's here. There could be some really good people voted in that have got really good skills. It's not about trying to present ourselves now. It's about seeing where the end result is before we start the new term, I suppose, to a certain extent. Because I'm not really in it for cheering anything. I'm in it for the region and itself. Trying to learn from this whole experience. That's a big thing. I tell you, it's a lot of learning.
Sure is. And it doesn't stop.
No,
Doesn't matter how many years you've been here, it doesn't stop.
Has anybody else got anything else they'd like to add?
No, I just, what Jeremy said before about people who come here who haven't had much experience of being in a meeting and how to behave in a meeting. That I wouldn't have thought there'd be too many people like that, but maybe there are. But they also need to be able to use a computer and be proficient at it as well, because so much of that stuff comes by objective emails, how to use Outlook, how to put it in, how your calendar comes in, all that stuff.
Yeah.
You've got to be able to do that stuff, and if you don't, then that needs to be. That shouldn't put people off from standing if they're really keen, but that's something that perhaps we need to find out early on and say,
But actually a session on Objective Connect and how to use it would be really helpful.
A session on systems.
Nichols been able to bluff his way through for the last 6 years.
Yeah, I know, but we
Still like my hard copy. I do
it needs to be built into the process.
during meetings. I like to have a vote.
People go on Objective Connect and they announce things and highlight things, which the training was. And sometimes you get someone like me that just downloads it and just writes a one page as I go through it, page such and such.
Just need a training on what to.
You know, so there's all these different scenarios.
Okay,
Most comfortable.
so I'm going to, this is actually the end of this part of the workshop. I don't feel like we need to circle back around. I actually feel like we've addressed everything that I actually wanted to actually obtain from you today. So thank you very much for that. What Deborah and I will do is take all your notes. We will summarise this and we probably will push it back out to you and actually say, is there more? Did we capture what you actually really did feel and think? And then we'll actually start actually using the feedback to actually help us actually develop the induction for 2025.
Can we come back with more if we think?
If you like, if you want
There's
to.
already 2 pages of.
It's no, the more we get, the better.
This is cool stuff.
So I appreciate that. Michaela is here and we can move on. But for now, this is the end of this part of the workshop. Thank you very much for your time.
Converted order to Rowan as well.
Yeah. As you know, I'm the council's rep on predator-free work area on the trust. It's been set up to sort of kick this predator-free program off. We've completed our work around getting a plan accepted by the department in terms of here's how it would be done. So that's all done and dusted. So now a docker contracted ZIP to do the predator control work, and that's underway. The trust sort of, as a result, the trust role is quite a bit reduced, and it's just recently been further reduced. The department's not prepared to provide further funding for the trust, so there's been some discussions held in ZIP. Our CE, our general manager for the trust, is Darius Fagan, who you would have met a couple of times, I think, in presentations. He's now recently accepted a role with ZIP as the Waikiwi manager, which is a fantastic outcome because he's turned into be he was a great recruit. He came from corrections, so he wasn't not the sort of background that we normally thought. He was the chief probation officer there, so he's a very capable guy, and he's made the transition spectacularly well.
So he's gone across to the trust. We've got a wee bit of technical issues. Completely in charge, because this is exactly what happens when I'm in charge.
Blame someone else. ZIP has, and as you know, there's a biosecurity component to this program that the council is involved in, and we've got Rebecca Frampton on board here, who's doing that work. That work's continued, but rather than with the trust, it'll be with ZIP. So ZIP is going to, if you like, work with Rebecca and the council to progress the pathways plan. So the trust role is going to be reduced. Is wanted to brief you on that. You'll get a formal sort of letter about that shortly, but I wanted to give you a heads up. Here's how that's shaping up. So you shouldn't see any difference, but it's just that we've got, especially with the department not providing any further funding to the trust, that our role is really as a result. So we'll sort of go into a much more low profile. There's still a bigger job to be done in 4 to 5 years' time once the predator control work's complete. There's a work about, well, what translocations are needed, how do you then restore the biodiversity once the predators are gone, what work needs to be done. So there's still a longer term piece of work, but at the moment the emphasis is quite rightly on getting rid of predators, and that operational work is going on as we speak. The pre-feed was done recently. You might have seen a bit of publicity about that, and so we're planning to do that work around almost the pilot area, and which is also getting rid of the cats that are affecting the dotterel. So that's going to be also a bit of a pilot for so how this is going to work on the scale. So does that make sense? I hope I'm making a bit of sense. Yeah.
How did the dotterels go this year?
Well, they'll go much better once we get rid of those cats.
Yeah.
So they're in dire straits. They're down. So the numbers aren't looking good.
So they got a lot of them killed this year again.
It's an ongoing problem. I'm not sure the exact numbers. I think they're down to about 101 or something, low 100. So they need to get rid of the cats, and that's what's happening there. And that'll be also the pilot for how's the predator control work going to be on an operating scale with cameras, that sort of technology.
It's not just here, it's a region-wide issue that I'm noticing in the last 5 years or so. Feral cats.
Yeah. So yeah.
You take opossums on the road. Not all possums killed on the road. There's a lot of cats.
So there's unfortunately, the works is confined to Waikiwi Stewart Island, but there's a $90 million program that's going to hopefully we'll be confident we'll deal with it. Cats and the other predators.
The whole island?
Yes.
It's a big job.
Big job, $90 million. It's going to
Included hedgehogs, didn't they? Hedgehogs.
I'm not part of the Waikiwi, because I'm not sure it's a big issue there. They're doing some work around it, but the focus is on
Lyndall,
Thanks, Chairman. Couple of questions, Rob. The massive funding reduction from government, how's that affected
Well,
you?
it's not a massive one, it's just that the trusts won't be funded. Okay, so they're focusing their funding on the predator control. Okay,
So you, yeah.
so the trusts, the funding for the trusts is
And the other question is the deer. Are they part of your plan?
the deer part of the plan.
Because they're a pest.
Well, so we always were very clear around the scope of control. Deer are an issue, but then there's some conversation between DOC and the deer stalkers and other interests around how they'll deal with. Obviously, they'll be impacted. So that's a conversation that's going on alongside this, but
Yeah.
not.
Thanks.
Any other questions for Rob?
So it's a hugely powerful program. It's going to be significant for Southland and for New Zealand, the biggest island eradication. So it's going to be pretty fantastic. So I'm keen. Everyone gets really excited shortly when this is when the success is underway and the program's going.
Morris.
But, Mr. Chairman, I was initially a bit sceptical about it. It's a massive job, but actually there's been some really good work done in Southwestland over a huge area in the Perth River area where, predators, stoats and rats and possums have got down to a really low level. And there's all sorts of fantastic monitoring methods that have been developed recently, so there's a huge amount of technology development going on as well. So this will help that, and will help predator control in other parts of the country and the world as well. So it's something really to be supported, I think.
That one was funded, wasn't it, from the Wapiti
What's that?
sale of meat?
No,
No,
that's-
not that one?
no, not
This is Fiordland. So this is
No, in Fiordland, yes.
yeah,
That's what you were
No,
talking
that's not.
So the Southwestern is it was done by Zip. So Zip are involved in that in the joint dock operation, and it's built on a network of cameras at every roughly 35 hectares, I think it is. They have a camera that says some great technology, and so it's a similar system on the island. So you'll have this network of cameras that can pick up any incursions of predators once the control work's done, and the team goes in, and if there's something picked up, the camera can tell. What is it? There's a 95% chance it's a rat or a possum, or not, and then they go and can deal with it. So it's pretty impressive.
Rob, are you live trapping cats?
Cats work's underway as to what the best way to
Because I
do it.
remember when we did the hearing on the cat issue at Waikiwi, one of the trappers from the island came across and said there's an issue. That is, if you trap a cat, you can't tell if it's a pet or not. If it is a pet, you legally have to release it immediately. But you can't tell, so you have to take it back and get it checked for chip. But you're not allowed to move a wild cat. You have to destroy it instantly. So in other words, a legal bind. Does that still exist?
Well, the big advantage of the island is that this operation is in, if you like, the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
So there's
So the problem solved.
pet cats
Well,
out there.
yes and no.
Throw the bell away.
But it is an issue. So now,
They're not killed by secondary poison. Oh,
That's a couple of the submitters perhaps didn't necessarily.
good
So
luck.
that work's underway around how do you deal in those sensitive areas. It's not as straightforward.
No.
yeah.
Okay.
Okay, well, if that's all the questions there, we've just got one more present. I think Marcus has got a briefing for us, and then we'll have a cup of tea with you.
Yeah,
Right away.
is that right? Not keen.
Wildlife will take
Really?
Okay, so then we need to move into public excluded for this briefing. Okay, will give us the reasons.
So we're moving to public excluded to prevent the disclosure or use of official information for improper gain or advantage.
You've heard the reasons. Would somebody like to move? Moved by Morris, seconded by Alistair.
Yeah, that's right.
All in favour will say aye.
We got
Aye.
to get them. You're not so keen on that.
Just before we start, I'll hand out.